Do you still have political aspirations?
Well, I'm always open to the possibility. People ask me from time to time if I'm going to run still, or if they're still interested in donating, things like that. And if that in the future is a possibility, I would consider it.
Okay, let's get to, there are other, I know you've been involved in some other groups. Some call them political groups, some call them border groups, like Minutemen, American Border Patrol. Have you participated in their activities recently?
Recently, no, but I've been involved all the way back to when pre-Minutemen was the Civil Homeland Defense patrolled directly onto the U.S.-Mexican border there. There was a group called Ranch Rescue also. They did some good things. So I've been involved in a lot of different groups as far as, giving them support and that kind of thing.
We'll get to the immigration question in a second, but can you kind of background me a little more, give me a little more detail about what you were doing with these groups on the border?
Just supporting the cause of, securing our borders here in the United States, and anybody who's willing to do that, I think, is a good thing, so we should support them.
Do you think these groups are doing good work?
Absolutely, outstanding work.
Why?
Well, first of all, they've raised the bar. They've brought the awareness to the table. People talk about immigration every day, and doesn't matter whether it's on the left or whether the right. It's probably one of the hot topic buttons that we have in the media. You should know that, of course. And it's going to be the most important issue in my estimation, because our entire future society is at stake here. So which way it's going to go will depend directly upon both legal and illegal immigration.
Okay, so a lot of things have been said and written about you and illegal immigration people, whatever you want to call them. So here's, basically your chance to set the record straight. I mean, why are you so ardently against illegal immigration or immigration, period?
Well, and that's the key thing is we're always put into we're against, we're anti-immigration, or we're against something. I'm actually for America. I'm for sovereignty, and I'm for our rich European American culture, which we have here, which has made this nation great. And so what I would say is, why are they against European Americans? Why are they against the rich fabric that we have woven here in America from our founding fathers? Why do they want to invade our country and our land? That would be the question that I would have. And so I would see them as anti-American, and I'm simply an American who's here defending our nation, our culture, and our country.
Is that the whole concept behind America First?
America First, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Well, America First is a natural thing. You should be for America First. If you're from Mexico and you had Mexico first, or Guatemala first if you're from Guatemala, that makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is for people to come here from somewhere else and demand that their language, a foreign language, be spoken and written and printed up on the taxpayers' dime, that their flags are flown and not assimilated into our culture. Now that's what's foreign and unnatural and alien to what we should be looking out for here in the United States of America. And I would expect any country. I wouldn't go to Pakistan and go out there and burn their flags. I don't think I would probably live too long if I did, but I wouldn't demand that the 4th of July be celebrated in Mexico and demand taxpayer benefits of Mexico. And in fact, they have laws that prevent people from owning land close to the shore in Mexico if you're a foreigner. So every culture must protect itself, protect its borders, otherwise it ceases to exist. And if we want to continue on the path that we're going and cease to exist as a nation and see the rest of Western civilization collapse on top of us with that, as we see in Europe already, in England and Germany and other places, then it's already written in stone. But I think we have enough good patriots that are standing up and opposing that. We've also seen these tea parties. I mean, that's a great eruption of patriotism if I've ever seen it.
Now, what about, why do you think white people, the Aryan race, or Europeans, as you call it, why do we need to be protected?
Because we are being genocide right off the face of the earth, both through miscegenation, through massive immigration, and non-white immigration primarily, as well as the fact that we have so much against us, even in the media, that if we do anything that is, as a white civil rights person does, then we're called all kinds of names. Whereas if I had just a darker shade of skin and was out there in my community advocating, naturally so, for my people and my culture, then I would be a great civic leader. Meanwhile, if white European Americans do the very same thing, which is natural, protect their family, to protect their future generations, they're cast in some kind of bad light, as if it's evil or hate or anything like this. These are the kind of terms that we have to battle all the time. They're domestic terrorists, the SPLC. They're the ones who are working from within to destroy the foundations of this nation by doing that. It's a natural reaction to guard our borders, to defend our borders. And it's only through hate groups like SPLC and ADL and so forth that actually make it unlawful or are very distasteful to do what is natural. I think everyone has natural inclinations to defend our country, to prevent the drugs coming into our country. Methamphetamine particularly is hitting the white race right now very hard. It's chemical warfare. A lot of that comes from across the border with the super labs. There's a plethora of bad coming from this border situation, and at the same time they'll turn around and say, well, there's nothing that we can do. Of course, that border could be sealed tonight. If that was our goal, this nation is fully capable. We seem to be able to secure other people's borders all over the world, perhaps where we don't belong, and yet it's not that we're unable to secure our border, it's that those people are making it to where politicians are unwilling to. But the people have overwhelmingly cried out, secure our borders, secure our borders, secure our borders. Why aren't these politicians listening?
You wrote this: the Jew is a two-legged cancer which corrupts and putrefies all that is natural and noble upon this earth. Did you write that?
I sure did.
Can you explain?
Yes, I can explain that because anywhere where Jews have been able to congregate in any number, they have looked after not only their own, but they've worked to subversively destroy that nation or people that they've come into contact with. Now, for 2,000 years, we heard the cry, oh, diaspora, oy vey, we have nowhere to go, we don't have a land, look what Julius Caesar did, kicked us to the winds here, broke up our criminal gang, and now we have to live amongst you. Well, it's no longer like that. Why are we giving tens of millions, if not billions of dollars in aid to the secular state of Israel, a place which stands up supposedly for Jews, even though some say that's stolen Palestinian land, the true Semites, by the way. And we have Ashkenazi Jews that never had any descendants in the Middle East flocking in great numbers from Russia and Eastern Europe into the real land of the Semites, which is the Palestinians. Well, if that's the sovereign state of Israel, then go there, if that's the interest that they want to have. How many people that are working in the State Department have dual citizenship? They're serving two masters. They have an Israeli passport and they have an American passport. Which is it they want to be? Do they want to be on board here in America, or do they want to serve these foreign interests? If they want to serve the foreign interests, we wouldn't put up with that from anyone else. We wouldn't say, okay, we have Germans here with Third Reich passports, and we're going to let them infiltrate our government and funnel off money over to Third Reich or something like this as they occupy Sudetenland. No, we wouldn't do that. So why are we allowing this to happen with the Jews?
Well, what would you do with the Jews if you were in charge?
If I were in charge, I would make sure they had a safe passage home.
Back to Israel? You ship them all back to Israel?
Hey, why not?
And you'd end all U.S. support for Israel?
Absolutely. That's what's causing the conundrum of wars in the Middle East right now. Israel exports nothing of value for us, not even oil or anything, and yet we import all the trouble from the Middle East because we have these Jews that can't get along with their neighbors over there, causing all kinds of wars and stuff. We would have no problem with Iran or Iraq or any of the other countries over there if we simply said, okay, Israel, we're not going to go over and attack you, we're not going to hurt you or anything like that. You are truly sovereign. Have your nation, have a great time at it, and don't kvetch when things don't go your way, because it's not our responsibility. I think Ron Paul made that clear too in his campaign.
So what are the 200,000, almost 200,000 Americans who died fighting Nazis in World War II? What are they?
What they are were people that committed racial suicide for their grandchildren. That's what they are. And I've spoken with American veterans on this too from World War II that are very sad by the fact that now their granddaughters' posterity is not going to be white, that their grandsons are addicted to drugs, that they have the MTV culture, which is owned by Jews also, and that they went over and invaded our cousins across the sea there and wiped out people and had real Holocausts like Dresden, firebombing of civilians. And that's why when you mention like the National Socialist Movement, Commander George Lincoln Rockwell, what American patriot we have there, World War II veteran, Korean War veteran, an officer, and a gentleman, and he's the one who founded the American Nazi Party. So I would think people like that more than anyone would know what a tragic mistake that was for Western civilization to commit racial suicide through World War II. What an awful thing that we did to ourselves. And now we, the grandchildren and soon-to-be great-grandchildren of that generation, are having to pay the price for that. Look at England, totally overran by third world foreigners that would have never happened had Churchill not started a war with Hitler.
That's a new concept I haven't heard before. Define that for me again. World War II, American World War II soldiers fighting in Europe, committing
racial suicide, that's correct.
Explain that
and
term.
cultural suicide.
Explain that term to me.
Because even all the way up to 1965, we had the Immigration Reform Bill by Hart and Seller, both Jews, and they designed legal immigration to displace white Americans completely from this continent. And so even when people get caught in the trap of saying, well, I'm not for illegal immigration, but I'm still for legal immigration, no, we need to re-examine everything, including legal immigration from 1965 forward, that in itself is racist and genocidal, trying to displace us from our own land, which is unnatural. Well, in World War II, how could it be more so? What was the majority of people who died? White people. Whether they spoke Russian or whether they spoke German or Polish or French or British or American, South African, on and on, makes no difference. We wiped out an entire generation of warriors that would have defended their own land, that had good family values. They're wiped off the face of the earth. And then now we come back to a country here that's being destroyed from within. So I think that had we have been better neighbors, and had England had been better neighbors with Germany, we would have never had that horrible thing happen in World War II, not to mention in 1933 that the Jews of the world declared war against Germany first. And if we're talking about defense, we didn't have Germans marching up and down the street here. We don't have Germans occupying our country to this day. The same can't be said for Americans on their soil.
So I'm going to go back to the Nazi question.
Okay.
Not only do you support groups that are called neo-Nazis, but you think it was unnecessary to destroy the Third Reich, the German Third Reich, during World War II. So I come back to the question again, do you consider yourself a Nazi?
I don't use that term, so no. I mean, the word Nazi is at the end of Ashkenazi Jew, too, so are they Nazis? I mean, that goes back to using the terms of our enemies to label ourselves. You know, if people called you a hypocrite or a liar or things like that, and someone kept drilling you, well, do you consider yourself a hypocrite or a liar or a terrorist? Well, of course, why would you use those terms?
Well, I'm talking in terms of organization here. I'm not talking in terms of opinion. I'm talking in terms of a political party, a movement, a national. Do you consider yourself a National Socialist?
National Socialist, I am.
Weren't Nazis considered National Socialists?
Well, there's a term that starts with an N for calling black people, too. So I think that the N term for National Socialists, by calling them the Nazis, is the same thing. So, you know, would you grill a black guy and keep calling him, well, aren't you an N? I don't think you would. So back again, I don't use the terms of those who hate because I think that's just propagating hate.
Okay, so you are a National Socialist.
Absolutely.
And a Nazi is a bad word for National Socialist.
A Nazi is a word that's been used to associate with the Holocaust and many other, media-inspired things to cause this emotional response rather than to ask, what is it really about? What are things really going on? And so this is a term that scares the hell out of people, and of course I'm not going to use that term. You know, that's just like the word domestic terrorist. Well, who's more domestic terrorist than people with a fiat banking system from within corrupting our economy?
And you don't consider a National Socialist a hate group or a domestic terrorist organization?
Oh, absolutely not. I consider the ADL a domestic terrorist group.